Welcome to the MMHP and the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history, recorded live from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located inside the Bay County Historical Museum,
from the city by the bay,
featuring Dr. J, Fred Reif, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker. Brought to you by the 989 Podcast Network and the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located at the Bay County Historical Society Museum at 321 Washington Avenue, Bay City, Michigan.
And we're back here at the MMHP and the 989 with Robert Barclay, part 2 of 2. And we hope you got to listen to part 1 of this 2-part series with Robert Barclay as we learned his backstory, his photography passion, where he's been all around the states, where he was going as a young person, leading his way to the radio station at WCMU, where he hosts the Juke Joint every Sunday night, and he has for the last 39 years. We hope you tune into part 2 here and enjoy. This is a crazy, fun ride. One of the greatest DJs of blues music in the world, Mr. Robert Barclay.
Hey, Robert, did you ever, the last time I booked Sir Mac Rice, you were there at the with the Barclays and Eddie Floyd. Did you get any pictures? I've got a picture of Mac and Eddie Floyd behind stage.
On the main stage of Chicago?
Right.
Yeah, I do have photos of Sir Mac Rice. Yeah, and there was the second or third time that he was there, and he was...
Well, this was the last gig.
Okay.
Because he forgot the words of Mustang Sally, and his wife came out from the side, or where we were standing, and she went up on stage and put her arm around her and started singing the song, helping him out. I don't think the audience even knew that he forgot the words, but...
You know how and it's not the same thing, but Jimmy Reed, his wife, Mama Reed,
I saw that in Ann Arbor.
In recording, she'd lean into his ear to give him the next line, and then he'd do it. What do they call that beat? The chunk, 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 chunk that Jimmy Reed specialized in.
Well, I come to the conclusion that whole swamp sound of Lazy Lester, Lonesome Sundown,
Slim Harpo,
is all Jimmy Reed.
Oh, yeah. They love Jimmy Reed in Louisiana.
I mean, when Lester would do one of his songs and then do a Jimmy Reed song, it was the same, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. When you started your own music collection, and I'm sure that's what you used for a lot of your first shows, was music collecting, has that ever been a thing for you? Have you ever been like a digging for some blues that you haven't found? Any kind of music, whether Dylan, whatever.
You used to buy a lot of records, I know that.
Or it was just you just kind of went with the flow and got what you wanted when it.
I bought pretty much what I wanted, and there are certain groups that I was not interested in that were wildly popular, like. Does anybody here know Steve Jessmore? Used to be a photographer at the Saginaw News. His father owned Saginaw Photo. You're from Saginaw.
Yeah.
Downtown, Saginaw Photo. Well, his father owned that.
Oh, okay.
So Steve, take whatever lens you want. He says, I'm going to go photograph Kiss. Kiss? Yeah, they're playing at Saginaw Auditorium. So he went when he was in high school, and I'm not a Kiss fan. I mean, they're to me, they're over the top, but they're wildly popular. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question.
No. My question was
record collector.
Yeah, were you ever a digger, like looking for this one piece of blues that you'd heard of? After all these years, you're into it, and you're like, man, I've never got a copy of that. Have you ever tracked things down or gone after collecting?
I usually know what I'm looking for. If I see it, I go, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And I set it aside. Portland, Oregon, where my wife is from, to this day, I think there are something like 24 independent record stores.
Really?
They're in rooms the size of this room here. But there's one called Crossroads. If you have records you want to get rid of for whatever reason, because, well, I've already got the CD, I'll sell the LP. You take them down there and you walk, like, this is Fred Reif's section, and when you buy the record, the guy writes it down on the clipboard. Fred Reif's,
Okay.
I owe Fred Reif $10 for this record.
Ooh.
So it's a place where record collectors get rid of their, or they'll sell cutouts.
Yeah.
With
Promos,
the corner is clipped, or there's a hole drilled in it.
Yeah.
I've got
Don't see those anymore.
No, not so much.
No.
Boy, I used to get,
I
when
bought
I
quite a
had the
few of those,
record
too.
shop, get the Scorpion list. That was a cutout company. And you'd see Prestige, Blue Note,
Oh, yeah.
all these labels. You go, what? They're cutout?
Yeah, what
33
designated
cents?
a cutout? Why did they make it a cutout?
Well, cutout meant they would sell them for $2 or $3. It was like they were not going to keep it in stock, not going to keep it in print,
Right.
right, Fred?
Yeah.
Or it was DJ copies. I have, I don't know, probably a couple of dozen albums in my record collection that say WKAR on it in big letters, like it was a promo copy that they decided, well, we're going to sell off our albums because we play CDs now. Well, everything now seems like it's going to online kind of work, and that's one of my fears.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite records in your collection that you have? That you're like, I have a copy of this.
I've seen his collection.
I can only imagine.
It's a big one.
Well, it's not a rare thing. You can still buy it to this day, but I used to hear about this time the Rolling Stones went to the Checkerboard Lounge where Muddy Waters had a gig.
I got that video.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, well, but it was available only as a bootleg.
Yeah.
Oh,
And there was
okay.
no video,
Uh-huh.
just the bootleg. And I listened to it, and I said, the quality is not very good. Well, fast forward a couple of decades, and somebody got a hold of it, cleaned it up, got the Rolling Stones permission to legitimate, because their name is on it. Remember Bob Dylan's Great White Wonder?
Oh,
Yeah.
It didn't say Bob Dylan on it. It said Great White Wonder.
Right.
And it was in a generic sleeve. Like,
Yeah, that was probably the first bootleg, wasn't it?
yeah,
I think that was
First
the
famous
bootleg,
bootleg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So that's probably, and the video came with it, CD and a DVD. And I'm sitting there watching it. Muddy Waters is playing half a dozen different tunes. And then one by one, people are filing in, sitting at the front table. It was the Rolling Stones and their entourage. And then pretty soon, Keith Richards gets up there and plugs in his guitar, and then Muddy's guitarist, Muddy stayed there obviously, but his
Wasn't
Rick
it
Crayer.
John Primer? Wasn't he in that
Rick
band?
Crayer, do you know
Okay.
him? Kreher.
Okay.
He was in Muddy's band at that point in time, 1983. And I said, Rick, I got to sit down and get the story of what that was like to be in Muddy's band
Oh,
the night the
really?
Rolling Stones came in and sat in with Muddy at the Checkerboard. He says, anytime you want to do it, let's do it. Just haven't done it yet.
Oh,
Oh boy, that's a show
That's
to
a
look
big one.
forward to.
Yeah.
So
I know that came out officially not too long ago.
Yeah.
That whole show on DVD and all that Blu-ray. But that's cool. You had some bootlegs are some of your favorite collection pieces. Then.
I don't generally buy bootlegs.
No need to anymore.
Well, except the artist who I have the most bootlegs by is Tom Waits.
Really?
I'm a hardcore Tom Waits fan.
Here's a story.
I have, including bootlegs, I probably have 30, 35 Tom Waits,
really?
and that includes legitimate releases.
I'm with you.
And some of them were just recorded up when in his early years. He'd go into a radio station in LA in Santa Monica KCRW, and tape a 1 or 2 hour interview, and they'd play a couple of tunes, then they'd talk, a couple more tunes, not literally. It was playing a record, his first album, second album, Nighthawks at the Diner or whatever. But somebody, recorded it with a cassette deck and issued it as a bootleg. And they're all really quality releases.
That's cool.
Did you ever see Tom Waits?
I saw Tom Waits. I saw Tom Waits 6 times. Saw him at the Troubadour twice in West Hollywood.
What years?
1976 and 77.
Did you see him at East Lansing with Shara Shambo opening up?
I have
for him?
friends that
was great.
went to Michigan State, and they saw him there. But he and Bette Midler had a thing going on. They were a duo.
Wow.
And he recorded an album called Foreign Affairs, and there's a song on it, I Never Talk to Strangers. I think that's the one she sings a duet with him. Well, things like this don't happen to me very often. I read about them. They happen to somebody else. Yeah, okay, I just recorded a record, and I had Bette Midler on it. Bette's in the house. Bette, stand up. And she goes, no, Tom, stand up. She goes, oh, and her hair was all funky, and and the Troubadour, fully loaded, probably 250 people, about the size of the Ark, smaller than the size of the Ark, and jammed in there.
So was Bette Midler? Had she put out her first album?
Oh
at
yeah,
this point?
yeah. She was already a star.
All right.
But they were a duo for a while. And so she goes, get up here and sing one with me. Let's sing it. He goes, oh, Tom. So she did. She got up and sang, and I'm shooting pictures with my 50 millimeter lens. And I was not this close, but it was really a lot of fun. So I took my wife, who was not a Tom Waits fan except for his earliest albums, and the door to the dressing room was like right here, and we're seated in this club, and his acoustic bassist, I think there was a drummer. There was 2 people up on stage doing a warm up, 2 or 3 warm up to ding 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 on the acoustic. I love the Doghouse bass. I don't know if that was a good impression of.
Oh, very
It was
good.
pretty good.
But
Yeah.
I love that sound, that jazz sound. And this door opens up, and he leans against the door, and I went, "Oh my God, it's Tom Waits. God, he's big." Hey Tom, how's it going? So I shook his hand. He goes, he just sort of growled, He had his hat on, which was always sort of like he sat on it. And then I saw him one time at the Roxy in Hollywood on the Sunset Strip. Jimmy Witherspoon was the opening act. I went, Oh my God, what's he doing opening? I mean, Jimmy Witherspoon, Blues Hall of Famer. I mean, we're talking great singer. But he opened, and then Tom Waits came out and did his thing. And then when we moved to Washington, D.C., Tom Waits went on the road with Leon Redbone as his opening act. Wow. It was at movie theaters, kind of like the Temple Theater, kind of like that kind of a setting, maybe 2,000 people in the house. And as soon as Leon Redbone finished his set, I'd say about a third of the audience got up and left. They came to see him, And then Tom Waits went to that one, and then I saw 2 at Royal Oak when we moved to Michigan. And we had a little, my son was like 2 or 3 years old. I said, well, I want to go see Tom Waits. Can you stay home with Sam? So I went down. Well, I got tickets right away, Royal Oak Music Theater, 2nd or 3rd row. And I'm sitting with all these Tom Waits fans, and we're all just like, we had our own stories about Tom Waits. My favorite. Do you want to hear a Tom Waits story?
Sure.
A lot of artists don't like it when people shout out requests. Well, there was a guy up in the balcony shouting out requests. And Tom's trying to start a song. The guy keeps shouting out a request. So Tom says, yeah. Hey, buddy, can you hear me from way up there? Yeah, Tom, I can hear you. Can you see me? Yeah, Tom, I can see you. Can you see this? whole crowd went nuts. The guy shut up. Got the bird. And my other favorite 30-second or less story, Leon Redbone was the opening act, and he played sitting down. And there was a guy in the front row that kept shooting flash, like
Right in his face.
Leon Redbone stopped in the middle of a song, sets his guitar down, takes out what we used to call an Instamatic camera, stands up, he goes,
Right in the dude's face.
right in the dude's face. Everybody, the guy stopped shooting pictures. Yeah, there's,
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love the, and witnessing it just makes it all the more
sure.
fun.
Yeah. Redbone, he was spoken on our Andy Rogers show. Andy Rogers used to have him down
Yeah, I
at
know
the
Andy.
Ark all the time. And he used to have like kind of a thing down there regular when the Ark was just first going, and Andy was shooting photos. And it's crazy, how his little story of Ann Arbor and how he took it out and moved on. But that's fantastic that you...
Have you ever had Andy on the
Yes.
podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we heard how I'm repeating a former podcast show that we did.
Okay.
With him, yeah.
Because they just remodeled the Ark in the past year or so, and now they have really, the quality printing. Whereas before they were kind of like, they didn't spend much money on having his photos printed with the respect they should have gotten. And what's on display there now, they're virtually all his photos.
That's awesome.
He's-
We were just down there recently, and
Yeah.
it's so fantastic.
Yeah, and he's a year older, so he would have been class of '68 from Bay City, I believe.
Yeah,
I think this is his hometown.
Yeah, he's from around here. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but Leon Redbone was he's one of those ones that's like Tom Waits, gets between the cracks for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
And
I saw him at Hill Auditorium opening up for Linda Ronstadt.
Oh, really? Okay.
Now, there's a story of him in the early or mid 70s when we were just starting out. Had a show in Ann Arbor that was supposed to start at 8, 9 o'clock. He didn't show up till midnight or later.
Whoa.
And anyway, you can
And people
find
hung
it
around?
online.
They hung
there
around
were
to
some
wait?
people still hanging out, waiting. And you can find that online if you Google.
Yeah.
I hear Madonna didn't start
Oh, yeah.
a couple hours later than.
Yeah, she was supposed to start at 8:30, started at 10:30.
really, I wonder why.
Well, that's pretty typical.
That's
I know when I saw her, it was supposed to be 8:30, and I think she came out at 9:35 or 9:40. But yeah, that's a long time to wait, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was
And
music,
we were there
right?
at 7:30, so we waited 3 hours before.
Yeah, I mean, there was music, but it was terrible. Some electronic dance music at ear-splitting volume. Yeah, it was.
Wow. Now, let's ask you about some of your favorite Michigan blues acts that you've had on your show or talked about or played. What are some of your favorite ones from Michigan artists from over the years?
Well, I still think of John Lee Hooker as
Oh, yeah.
a Detroit artist, because he started getting really big, and then he made the move to the San Francisco Bay Area. But I still think of him as a Michigan artist. Of course, Larry McCrae, he's come on my show, 3, 4, 5 times over the years. Sometimes
He
we'll
also
bring-
has a Peggy from Oregon.
That's right, Peggy Smith. Yeah.
That's crazy you would say that. I'm like,
She's
oh.
been listening
Yeah, she's a
to
sweetheart.
my show for years. Yeah.
They're really good friends of ours.
Yeah. But some of the lesser known, the Detroit artists that Fred got the chance to get to know personally, travel with, I'm sure Fred's got some great stories.
Yeah, Fred's shared a lot of them, but I want to hear from you about your stories, your favorite artists you've played. Michigan artists. Do you go to track any down to go watch? Have you gone out off the air to go interview? Have you gone to shows?
And I think he's still alive because I usually keep up with the obit column in the paper. You never know. Well, at least I'm not in the obit column today. Little Sonny. I went over.
He's the only Detroit blues guy that I never booked or did anything with.
His phone number was in the phone book.
Well, he's still, as far as I know, he's still alive.
Yeah.
And he looks, every time I do see him, he looks younger.
Yeah, looks good.
I mean, he's muscular. And,
Uh-huh.
He's got to be about 90.
Yeah. He was willing. He had a gig at a church in Birmingham, Michigan, on New Year's Eve. So we heard about it. I thought, wow, church.
Recent, this past New Year?
No.
Oh.
This is 15 plus years ago.
Okay, right.
So I got his phone number. I can't even remember how I happened to. Somebody said, "Oh, it's in the phone book." I don't have a Detroit phone book, but anyway, he said, "Yeah, come on over. Here's my address." So I went over to interview him, and I would have loved to interview him for a couple of hours, because God, here we're at his home. He's drinking a cup of coffee, but he said, "I've really got to start thinking about my voice because I got a gig tonight." He said, "Oh yeah, we're going." That's how we first heard about this. So, but the best part was, the part we did talk about was Little Sonny when he played on Hasting Street in Detroit, which was, they called it Black Bottom, they called it Paradise Valley.
Right.
Paradise Valley. And then they tore out the neighborhood, and which freeway?
I think it was the Lodge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Drove right through that
Right.
neighborhood. Yeah. But Little Sonny, yeah, he told me some great stories.
Well, in 1959, I think those French blues research guys came and took all those photos
Oh yeah,
of Little Sonny and John
Jacques
Lee.
Dimitra or something like
Right,
that.
that guy. And because Eddie Burns told me that there was never any blues on Hastings Street,
Okay.
in the clubs.
Yeah.
They were on the
Side
off
streets.
streets.
Yeah, but at the Hastings Street neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever do anything with Cherie Williams or Thornetta Davis on the show?
Not.
MC'd.
Pardon me.
You MC'd that show at the Temple. I think Cherie was on that.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, that was. Yeah, but I've never interviewed her.
Okay.
Yep. And her biggest fans are in Europe.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
I think she goes there several times a year.
Still does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went with her the very first time.
Okay.
It's documented. I got pictures.
Yeah.
No, of me playing with her. She insisted that I played washboard with her in Germany. And I said, "Are you sure?" Because, she's more R&B.
Right.
And it got loud, but so I can add that to my resume now.
Sure.
R&B washboard.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I play R&B on my show.
Yeah, I know.
When I play soul music, because the evolution went from the blues and started segueing into soul music, especially Ray Charles in the 1950s. And then he made country music soulful. So he expanded that whole field of music, turned it on to new ears.
What do you do now for like new artists? Because most of the, the original guys are all passed on.
I know.
And it's mostly all
But
white guys. It's nobody's fault,
yeah.
but
Yeah. I make sure I find, you've probably seen my pictures that I post on Facebook.
yeah.
Take pictures of the CD covers, like Slim Harpo this Sunday.
Yeah, I saw the Lazy Lester album there in
Yep.
the corner.
Yep. I can't remember which Slim Harpo took, but I picked all the covers. And so the Rolling Stones, they were my introduction to Slim Harpo.
Me too.
Actually, not exactly true. I'm at the beach in California. I'm 16 years old. I got my my AM FM radio. Back then it was top 40, and I was always really into the top 40. It's the Sam Riddle Show, or this is Be a Mob, baby. Join us. And, all these LA DJs, who thought this is the Humble Harp Show, all that kind of stuff. So he goes, I'm sitting there listening to the Beach Boys, round, round, get around, I get around. Woo! Four Seasons, Sherry, babe. He said, oh, here's something by some guy named Slim Harpo. Baby, scratch my back. I know you can do it. So, baby, get to it. And I'm looking at my radio. What is this? I went, oh, my God. I mean, after listening to the Dave Clark 5, and it hit the charts. I think it was top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10. But it was just out of nowhere to me. I didn't know I knew Baton Rouge was the capital of Louisiana, but I didn't know, when I was 16, I didn't know Baton Rouge is where basically Buddy Guy was from Lettsworth, outside Baton Rouge, Slim Harpo, Lazy Lester from, was it Taurus, Louisiana?
Yeah.
They've all got historical markers out in there on the edge of town. I can't remember where we're going with this.
Michigan artists.
Oh, Michigan.
You dealt with, yes.
I would have drawn up a whole list if I didn't.
It's okay.
Well, I see you took
Johnny
Bassett.
Johnny Bassett.
Yeah, Johnny Bassett, yeah, classic.
Is there some?
My big Johnny Bassett story is we did a
Here
gig
he is,
together, and we on the break we went out to his Cadillac and passed a bottle around.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That was a thrill, man. He had, he talks about he's got a song about that Cadillac.
Oh, it's one of my favorites, Cadillac Blues.
Yeah.
And I got him in my Cadillac. But I got the assignment to shoot the cover photo of Johnny Bassett for Living Blues. So I call him up. The editor gave me his phone number. So I call him up. He says, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. He says, I'll take you to the places where the bars have jukeboxes with blues records on them in Black Detroit.
Really?
Not out in the burbs, in Detroit. And because I play there at these gigs, and I during the break, somebody always goes over and feeds quarters in and plays Bobby Bland off the jukebox. So I said, well, I do this radio show. Can we do an interview? And he goes, yeah. So I'm sitting at Johnny Bassett's home on the sofa, passing the microphone back and forth. And after about 15 minutes of really cool stories, because his I think it was his grandfather was a bootlegger down in, not Tallahassee, but Panama City, someplace down there. And during the Depression, during Prohibition.
Right.
Well, he told the story about the undersheriff would come by. He was my grandpa's best customer. So what you got the undersheriff, as they call him in the South, I think. So he's telling me those kind of stories, and I'm loving this. And he says, Robert, if we're going to do photos, I want to take you to 3 bars. So one of them was the music menu. This was the last. I said, This is the one. There was nobody in there. So they loved the fact that I was kind of set up umbrella flash studio lights to do this picture. But he took me to one where there was nobody in it. It was like 3:00 in the afternoon. He knew the barmaid, goes over and gets a smooch from her, introduces me to her. He said, takes me over to the jukebox. See, there's still some blues on here, Then he took me to this one that he says, now this is the one I play a lot of gigs at this bar. I can't remember. Oh, it was not the Attic. Can't remember what the name of it was, the Hideaway or something like that. And it was just, what's the first shift? Does that end at 4:00?
3:30 around
3:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
6:30 to 3:30. Anyway, 4:00, the place was humming. They had valet parking and all that kind of stuff. So I'm walking in with Johnny, and this really bruiser guy, bouncer or whatever, goes, "Where do you think you're going?" And I went, "I'm with Johnny." And he goes, "Yeah, you and me both." I went, "Hey, Johnny." And Johnny turns around and goes, "Oh, Robert's with me. Let him in." So I was the only white guy in the whole place. So now I had a feeling of what it would be like to be discriminated against on the basis of skin color.
Right.
But I go in, and he must have gotten kisses. I mean, not kiss on the cheek, kiss on the lips with all these women. Oh, Johnny, Johnny, Johnny. And he worked his way around the room getting smooches. And I went, this is why he brought me here. He wanted me to see this side of him. So
Yeah, he was a cool dude.
he really was. The gentleman of the blues,
Yeah.
that was his motto or slogan. Yeah.
When did you get the gig to, what was the first time you got the gig to shoot a cover for the magazine?
Well, the first cover I had was actually an existing photo. They were doing a story on blues mandolinist Yank Rachel from Indianapolis. I said, "Oh, I got Yank Rachel pictures. He was on Our Front Porch, the CMU Public Radio gig, playing with Maureen and Rich Del Grosso."
Oh, okay.
Maureen played piano, Rich played mandolin. So there was like two mandolinists playing. Madcap sat in for some tunes. So I had photos of this mandolin player. In fact, that's one of my photos right there.
Oh.
That's Yank Rachel right there at the Chicago Blues Fest.
Yeah, that's a nice shot.
But anyway, there's some other shots in here. I didn't think to bookmark them. I should have done that. But anyway, where were we going with this?
Well, we're talking about the
that was
first
Yank Rachel.
Yeah,
was,
when you shot
it was an
Living Blues.
existing photo as opposed to going out and shooting it in person. You know, where I'm moving lights in and out. This was at a restaurant in Grand Rapids. That's sadly no longer there. This was at the Music Menu, same place as this. And then I did, while I was there, you remember when the Motor City Pioneers,
Oh, yeah.
that vocal group, I
Yeah,
did
we were in
a group photo of
Holland
them.
together.
And then Peggy was with me. So I said, I want to jump into one of these photos. So I went in and put my face right in there. And everybody I've shown it to said, "Oh, Robert, that's just that's photoshopped. You just photoshopped it, you know." And I said, "No, that's really me there. I'm in the photo," kind of thing. So that was at the Music Menu. You heard that story down in Ann Arbor.
Right.
This was an action shot that the editor chose. And he said, "Oh, by the way, you got the next cover of Living Blues, Billy Branch." I went, "Oh, okay." And I had each artist sign it. I had kept my signed copies at home. Oh, not there we go.
Right. How many Living Blues covers have you shot? Do you know?
Not that many, maybe 8 or 9
Oh, it's
over
still
the years.
pretty
Oh, yeah.
impressive.
Well, I live in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Right.
There's not a lot.
Not the blues capital.
Not the
of
blues
world,
capital,
Right.
and it's not on the way to from
Right.
one. Like, do you know Old Harv
Yeah, I do for
down
some
in
reason.
Elkhart, Indiana? He just celebrated his 40th anniversary on the air with his blues show,
Okay.
Blues Review, I think it's called. He's a character. Well,
I used to send CDs to him.
there'd be gigs in Chicago. Then, Elkhart, Indiana. You know, Old Harv. There's a bunch of clubs down on the Michigan-Ohio border and Indiana border, not far from Notre Dame. And they'll come down there on their way to Detroit, and from Detroit they might go to Toronto, then circle back and hit Cleveland. Mount Pleasant's not on the way to anywhere. I love living in Mount Pleasant. You know, I bought a house as soon as, within 2 months, my humble
Nice house.
house. That's not the one you went to. We bought a 1880s house back in 1988.
Yeah, I was at that.
Oh, you were at that
I
house.
stayed
Well,
upstairs.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
you
Dr.
made-
Ross, Isaiah Dr. Ross.
Right. When he
spent the night.
stayed there.
Yeah, he stayed. And I said, "What can I get you to drink?" And he said, "Some grape soda, because I'm going to run to the market. Some wine." He says, "Grape soda, 2 of them."
Oh, he quit drinking at that point.
Yeah. So I went to Rick's Supermarket, which is about 8 blocks away. Bought 2 Grape Crush sodas. That's what he drank. That's what he drank.
So what year did you do these Living Blues covers? You remember that first year?
I think my first cover, was Yank Rachel, so that would have been probably 1984, 1983.
Wow, really early on.
Yeah, it was a black and white photo.
Okay.
They didn't have it full. This is called a full bleed cover. They had Yank Rachel was sort of boxed in. But
Are your credentials at the Chicago Blues Fest?
yeah,
Living Blues?
yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Because I'd see you there every year that I went.
My first one was '86. The
Me
only
too.
one I missed was 1996.
Okay.
Which was the weekend my son graduated from Mount Pleasant High School. I said, "Sam, geez, that's the Blues Fest." He goes, "Well, the superintendent, why don't you call Mr. Jansen and say, can we move
Postpone
Mount
it."
Pleasant High's graduation so that my dad can go to Chicago Blues Fest?" And I was afraid if I skipped it, maybe they'd take my credential away. So I wrote to several photographers, a couple from the New York Times, Jack and Linda, say, "Save me a seat. I won't be there this time, but I'll be back next year." So they spread the word among the photographers. The photo pit, maybe 40 or 50 photographers.
Wow.
So have you gone since they moved it?
Yeah, and I actually like the new location.
Oh, really? I haven't gone
actually
since they
has-
moved it.
Restrooms that you don't mind going into.
Well, that's
as
why I
opposed to
always like to
dumping-
have
porta
backstage
johns.
passes.
Oh, the porta
At Grant Park,
Right.
where the Petrillo band shell was the main stage,
Yeah.
it'd be all porta johns. I hate porta johns.
Oh, they're
Plus,
awful.
I got a heavy camera bag. Am I going to set it on the floor where everybody's peed?
Yeah.
I can and they're all unisex. I'd be coming out, and there'd be a woman getting in line to come in. I said, "I did not decorate the seat in there. I lift the seat up when I go." He goes, "But I'm real sorry. That was already there when I went in." She goes, "Okay, I'll get over it." But real restrooms and a couple of restaurants where you can go in and have a beer, get a burger or a salad or whatever at Millennium Park, it's called. It's
Okay,
right next
right.
to Grant Park.
Yeah. That's where that big thing is.
It's right next to the Bean. A lot of tourists know where the Bean. You ever heard of the Bean?
Yeah,
It's like
that's
a
what
big-
you call it, right?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Right.
Tons of tourists. And I've been over by there, wandered through there, and people will be going, "What's that music I hear?" "Oh, that's the Chicago Blues Fest." "Oh, wow. Oh, is it sold out?" "No, it's free." Free. So a lot of young people would go hear some blues for at least a few minutes.
Right.
So
What's your favorite story of all your years on the radio? Something you've shared that you'll never forget.
Well, losing control of my emotions when I broke the news that Luther Allison was dying. It's certainly memorable. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, Robert, I was listening that night. We were all hushed when you lost it on the air." It's just, oh my God, I still remember. And shit, that was 1997. That was quite a while ago. But people still remember that. But probably one of my favorite stories, this girl writes to me and said, "My parents are divorced, shared custody, I'd be with my dad every other weekend. He would drive 2 hours to pick me up and drive me back on Sunday night. And I had to listen to your show all the way. Listen to, because it was my dad's favorite show. Well, after all those years through high school and all that, now I'm a CMU student. And guess what? I'm a blues fan, and I listen to you on Sunday nights. I said, what? You know, just knowing that made me feel good.
Wonderful.
So.
Well,
That's
in
awesome.
2004, was that your first honor when the Blues Foundation in Memphis gave you that Keeping the Blues Alive award? That must have been a pretty big thrill.
It was huge. I mean, there's people like old Harv. He's been doing his show for 40 years. I got my award 10 years before him. So there's lots of worthy people out there. But I went to the station manager at WCMU, it's TV and radio. And I said to Ed, hey, I just got this award. I'm going down to Memphis. He goes, okay, we'll fly you down, I don't know, 2 or 3 nights in a hotel and you know, to thank you for, he said, I'd like Peggy to go with me. What if we drove down? He goes, whatever the airfare is, if the airfare is $400, we'll give you $400 for your gas tank. And, you know, stayed a nice place. So we did, you know, near where the Blues Foundation had the Keeping the Blues Alive Awards thing. Bob Porter, the legendary blues and jazz DJ and record producer, was the MC. The night before I got my award, it was a, what do they call it? Keeping the Blues Alive Award brunch. It was midnight. I'm in Tower Records. midnight. They close at midnight. And I'm flipping through the blues stuff, and I kind of look around. I said, Bob Porter. He goes, what are you doing? He says, doing what you're doing. Looking for anything that might catch our eyes. And, oh, where did this come from? Kind of thing. So he used that the next morning. Told that story. Says, well, I'll tell you what, I know Robert as a photographer, but now I know he's a blues DJ in Michigan. I bump into him at Tower Records at midnight. We're both thumbing through the records. Blah, 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 blah. So that was a big thrill to. But
the award was for your radio show.
For the radio show.
Yeah, not
Was
for
that
your
at the
photography.
Peabody?
But see, he no, I can't remember the name of the venue.
Because when we went, it was at where those ducks walk across.
Oh yeah, okay. There's a
Peabody
story.
Hotel.
Peabody Hotel, yes.
Yeah, he was a DJ who did a show called Portraits in Blue from
New Jersey.
Blah 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 in Newark, New Jersey, a big station. And I interviewed him several years ago, just before he passed, and I said. And I wasn't prepared to do the interview, but since I bumped into him and I had my tape recorder there, I figured I could come up with some decent questions. So I said to him, what is your proudest achievement? He says, well, I got a Grammy Award for putting together the Atlantic R&B 8 CD set.
Oh, yeah?
Atlantic R&B 1948 to 1974. And it's like, all R&B. From the first big hit was Drinking Wine Spodioti by Stick McGee, Brownie McGee's brother.
I've got that on vinyl.
Then
Almost copies of that.
Then Ruth Brown.
Right.
Made a whole bunch of hits, and they referred to it, the Atlantic label, as the house that Ruth built, which is taken off on the New York Yankee Babe Ruth. Yankee Stadium is the house that Babe Ruth built.
Yeah.
But you said the Peabody Hotel, and this picture is on that thumb drive. Peggy and I were walking through the Peabody Hotel. We were staying a few blocks away. A nice place, but not as expensive as the Peabody. And there was this menswear shop coming up. I went, oh my God, look at all these cool shirts. I call them bowling shirts, like a square cut pocket.
Yeah.
and big, like wide stripes, like that wide. And went, wow, look, I love those kind of shirts. So I'm walking, and I go, oh my God, Peg, this is Lansky Brothers. This is Lansky Brothers. This is where Elvis shopped in like 1955. Oh my God, look, we got to go in. Maybe I'll buy one. Well, they were like $120 each. So I bought two. But the main reason I bought two is I'm standing at the counter, and there was a guy, I don't know, 45, 50-ish behind the counter. And I said, all those pictures of Elvis is some guy helping him try his coat. Here, Elvis, here, let's put this coat on. He's helping him try it on. He goes, oh, that's my dad, back in 1957. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, God. I do a radio show in Michigan. I said, I would love to have interviewed your dad. Oh, okay, he's right over there. And I thought he was long dead.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this. I didn't say that.
Right.
So he texts me over and introduces. He says, he does a radio show and he wants to get some stories from you. He goes, sure, we can do that. So I said, this is my wife. She shoots photos during my interviews. Can I come behind? He said, well, we don't usually let people behind the counter by the cash register. He goes, but I want to be close to those pictures of you and Elvis helping him try on a jacket. He goes, oh, well, okay. So he's telling me this and that, and he said, yeah, Elvis worked at whatever the name of the theater back in the days when they had ushers with the flashlight that would seat you. I think it was the Lowe's Theater. And once the movie started, Elvis would come down. He'd go out and have a smoke. He'd wander on down. He'd be looking at the shirts, and he'd say, "Oh, Mr. Lansky, God, this is some great stuff." And he goes, "Yeah, Elvis, come on in." Or he didn't know his name. Didn't call him Elvis. He said he was like 16 years old. He goes, "You ought to check these out." "Oh, I can't afford anything in here." "Oh, well, just look at it." So comes back. A couple of years later, he goes in and records "That's All Right, That's All Right, Mama," Big Boy crewed up tune for Sam Phillips at Sun. And he goes, Mr. Lansky, I want to be on the Ed Sullivan Show." And he goes, "Oh, that's great, Elvis. That's great. What do you do?" He goes, "I play a little guitar. I got a guitarist and a bass player in my band." He says, "I got a record deal, RCA Records," because he was at that point just leaving Sun Records. And he goes, "Oh, I got a problem, Mr. Lansky." He goes, "What's your problem, Elvis?" He says, "I ain't got no money." He goes, "That you do got a problem, but I can float you a note." So he says they brought the TV into the store that night. And he says, "Oh, man, look at that kid shaking his hips. Look at that, Elvis the Pelvis. Yeah, man." He says, "And he's looking good, too. Nice," because he sold him his clothes. And he went on to tell me a story. He says, "You know Johnny Cash, the Man in Black? I'm the one that made him the Man in Black." He came in here at one time from Sun Records. He comes in with a can of Prince Albert tobacco. And they had, I think my wife called it a frock coat. It was kind of longer than a suit coat, almost down to your knees. He says, "I want a coat just like this." He says, "We'll get one made for you, Johnny." Blah, 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 blah. So ultimately I made him the Man in Black.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Fantastic.
So anyway.
Yeah, quite a career. And you were recognized also, right, for your contributions to public radio. Like 2015, you would have been on the air.
Homework.
Well, a little bit. Okay. But you would have been on the air then, like 30 years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
All right.
That was really fun. I can't think of the man's name. Because it was commercial. I was recognized in the public category, and the other one was commercial TV. Bill, sports guy. He did University of Michigan football games on the radio.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of his name.
All
right
I
now.
can think of Michigan football on the radio is Bob Euchre.
No, it wasn't Bob Uecker. And I think he did Tiger Baseball, but he was the big star. He went into the Michigan Journalism Broadcasters Hall of Fame that night and everything. And he's up there telling stories, and he said, we all love our jobs because the place is full of journalists, broadcasters, not just journalists, broadcasters, radio, TV, music, classical music, news, whatever. He says, but no one loves their job more than Robert Barclay. Because he doesn't get paid, and he's been doing it for 30 years. So I got a big round of applause for that. And it was so cool. I had the station manager one time say at a staff meeting, he said, well, just wanted to announce that we're going to increase Robert's pay by 400%. And the engineer in front of me goes, 400% is nothing. But I'm at a for real radio state. It's more than for real. I mean, it's the fact that we're streaming and I have listeners all over the world.
Playing the music that you love.
Never get tired.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Never get tired of doing it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you come to Bay City. You interviewed John Mayall at one of the gigs here. I was there at that show. A lot of stuff that Paul would book for Larry around here. You've been at.
Paul Cook.
When I was running the Saginaw Bay Blues Society in the aughts, you were at a few of those events that we put on.
Winona, is it
Princess Winona? Yeah.
No. What's the band shell called?
Winona Park. It's
Winona,
Friendship Show.
Winona Park.
Yeah.
I remember Coco Taylor was there.
That was a Paul show.
Yep. I can't remember who else was on the bill but then another time it was a bank that sponsored it.
Yeah.
A local bank.
Well,
it was Nathan and his Zydeco Cha-Chas.
Really?
Right.
It was great.
I saw Buddy Guy across the river
Right.
that time.
Well, Johnny Lang played at the old Sears parking lot. They had a blues festival. Was that Johnny
It was
Lang?
Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Oh, Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
I did
That's
the
what
interview
I'm
for
saying.
that one.
Yeah.
Yep, that was a Paul show.
Right, because I saw Paul in the tent.
And then the Buddy Guy, I believe, was Paul through Chad Cunningham on the Vets Park side.
Okay.
Paul also worked with
was at that show.
Right.
Paul also
Larry
worked with
McCrae.
Johnny Winter.
Yeah, he brought him to town for the Masonic, I believe. I think I interviewed Paul, the guitar player from Johnny's band. I couldn't make the show, though. I had a gig of my own, so I was gone. But, he brought a lot to Frankenmuth there in the the 90s, early aughts there. And I covered all them for the newspapers and did a lot of the previews.
Johnny Winter was in Frankenmuth?
No, Johnny Winter was at the Masonic here in Bay City.
Oh, yeah, right.
But Frankenmuth was Bobby Blue Bland. We did that one. We did Carl Weathersby twice.
show.
I did Bernard Allison.
Bernard Allison.
Luther's son.
Not Luther, but Bernard. Who was the other son?
There's Bernard right there.
There's another son that came. Bernard, and then there was another guy's son.
Kenny Neal.
Well, Kenny came to one of the blues shows. Dickie Betts, Kenny Neal.
Because his father
There's a
was
few of
Rayful
them.
Neal.
Dr. John. I interviewed Dr. John. Preview, went backstage the day of the show, and that was when Hurricane Katrina came in. Was in Louisiana, and he's standing all by himself back in a corner. And I go, Dr. John, I'm Scott Baker. He goes, hey, thank you, man. I said, how you doing? Not good. I go, what's up? He goes, just got called from Rolling Stone to do an interview. I can't find my daughter in Louisiana. She's in that hurricane. She got flooded away somewhere. She's gone. I'm losing them left and right over there, and they're calling me all over. So I just did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine. So I consoled with him for 20 minutes before he went on stage. He was feeding me all his sorrows from he couldn't be home to do it, but he was going to put it into the music that night, and he knew one of his daughters was dead, and he had to give that interview at the hotel in Frankenmuth just before he came on stage.
That's brutal.
So
When did this happen in Frankenmuth? Must have been when
that
I
was during
living
Hurricane Katrina. When was that day?
in-
That weekend.
Well, I was living in Ann Arbor.
The 2001 or so?
Yeah, or 2 or 3, somewhere in there. Yeah, and it was a 2-day festival because Kenny Neal gave me a bag of craws to take back to Paul's for his brother who was playing bass. Noel was playing with Larry at the time.
Right.
And Paul introduced me to Kenny, and Kenny goes, "Hey, you're going back to Paul's house? Yeah, he's a bag of fresh crawfish from Louisiana. Get that to his back door on your way home tonight." I said, "Okay." So I
Yeah,
delivered that for
nice.
him.
Yeah.
But we've had a good run of the blues. Thanks a lot to Larry and Paul over all these years, in our area, and I've gotten to see you at it. Now it's nice to meet you and have you hear your story. Thank you for sharing it with us. Hopefully we could do another one. Maybe we'll do another one on a feature, maybe somewhere we can tag team an artist too, and both do some interviewing. Would that sound good?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can work it into that 40th anniversary.
I like that idea.
That's pretty significant. 40
Yes,
years,
that's
boy.
stellar.
The thing that I wonder, this guy who just had his 40th, old Harv, I would guess he's 10 years younger than me. But I didn't start my show until I was 35. Some people got onto blues radio when they were college students, 19, 20 years old, because they were hip college students into the real thing, the real blues. So if they started their show when they were 19 and now they're 70, well, there's your 40 or 45 years.
Do you know how long Jerry Mack had his?
Does he still have it?
Yeah.
Does he? It's a long time. Well,
Yeah, I know it. It might even be longer than yours.
I called down to WEMU one day to talk to, what was the woman? She's retired now. Can't think of her name. But anyway, and I said my name, and I tried to tell her who I was. And she goes, "Oh, I know who you are." She says, "You're a big shot."
No.
What? And she says, "I know you got that big Keeping the Blues Alive award." And I said, "Wow, I was really pleased." But anyway, I think she thought some of her like Jerry Mack, who'd been doing it longer.
Well, he's on community radio.
Oh, okay.
Like
at Henry Ford College?
WCMU or whatever. Well, it's a University of Michigan, but it's
a limited range.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's free form, except like Jerry Mack has had his blues show, Brian Tomsick with his reggae show, been on for 30 plus years.
Yeah. Mad Cat, who I met 1980 when we first moved here for the Hour Front Porch concert, he said, "Oh, you're starting a show." He says, let me send you a cassette tape of a show we have down here. A guy does a show called the Big City Blues Cruise.
Right.
And he comes on.
Tino Gross at that time. Wow.
He called it his blues handle was Martino Di Lorenzo.
Right.
Or Martino D.
Right.
And he come on and I didn't try to memorize it. I just listened to the tape so many times that I just remember it. Bebop shabam and how you am. This is your platter pushing papa, your daddy-o of the radio, your host and driver for the next 2 big hours on the Big City Blues Cruise bus. Check in on the old folks and make sure they're well fed and into bed because we're going to cause a ruckus. Here comes that old freight train himself, Big Joe Turner. And then boom, shake, rattle, and whatever. Now, I've told that story to numerous people over the years. Say, "How come you don't do yours like that?" And I said, "I can't make that stuff up." I just heard the guy do it so many times that it just...
Well, your theme
rolls off the
song.
tongue.
I wish I could do that.
Right.
I was going to say maybe you could work something out for our show.
You've got a good theme song, though. I like your theme song.
Oh, with the saxophone?
Right.
Yeah. I change it maybe every 5 or 6 years.
Oh,
No,
okay.
yeah. Some people will say, "Oh man, you changed theme song." I really get that. Whenever I hear your theme song, it made me think of the show, and I'd be looking forward to it, kind of thing. But I change it every now and then. Noble Thin Man Watts, and perfect name for the song, even though it's an instrumental, so there's no lyrics. It's called Jukin.
Right. I just posted a picture of Thin Man on Facebook
Oh, did you?
when we went fishing, and he was sleeping in the corner with his like this and his hat over his. Yeah.
Oh, you were down there with Lester?
Yeah. And Bob Greenlee,
Bob Greenlee, yeah.
who owned the record label that Noble was recording with at
Yeah,
the time, and Lester.
Yeah. I have those.
Right. Those are some good records.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the first time I met Gatemouth Brown was at Bob's studio.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And him and Kenny Neal, I think, might have been doing a record together. Because Kenny, I got a picture of them, and it's Kenny and Gatemouth and Bob Greenley.
Oh, yeah. What was the name of the? Oh.
King Snake.
King Snake, that's right. Yeah, I've got quite a few of those. Sonny Rhodes, lap steel guitarist.
Right.
He was a great interview. He was from Texas, and he worked on doing farm labor. And I guess the master or massa, whatever the guy was, says, "Hey, here's a guitar." He goes, "There's no strings on it." He goes, "That's for you to go out and get them." So it took him like several days to get enough to buy a set of strings, but he finally got them, and he starts playing it. And he had a blind uncle who liked to go downtown, and they put a hat. He said, "I want to put my hat down, and you're going to play something, and we're going to get some tips, and then we'll go buy a bottle." He goes, "Well, I'm a kid. I mean, I'm thinking." And he picks up the hat and he shakes it and he goes, "Yep, we got enough." So this is Sonny Rhodes. So he takes it down to the bottle store, liquor store, the bottle store, gets it, and we go around back. He says, take the cork out or whatever, the cap off. He says, "Here, take the poison out." He says, which I come to find out means you get the first sip. But it was just a drinker's expression. "Here, take the poison out. You get the first sip." So I did, and started playing guitar, and I played the lap steel guitar. Owned a club, Bobby's House of Blue Lights in Oakland, California. He says we were right on the border of Berkeley. Half our building was in Berkeley, half of our building was in Oakland. But they let us get away with it, kind of thing. And then he says, I was the bartender, I was the musician, I was the cook. He said, what was your specialty? He says, "Oh, I would get 5 packs of wieners and a big pot, throw in some hot sauce, and sell them for 25 cents a piece." I made a lot of good money on that.
It's your red hot.
Exactly. It's probably one of those bars where you go in and you find those hard-boiled eggs floating in.
That's right. Yeah. Woo.
There are people, I've seen them buy them.
Oh my gosh.
I remember the Zilwaukee bar. They had them right on the bar.
Oh yeah.
And a big thing.
Yeah. Hard-boiled eggs and
who would eat that?
Pickled. Yep. Pickled. Wow. Well, I'm interested in that take the poison out. Would that have come from the Robert Johnson, the famous story where he was poisoned, somebody gave him a bottle of whiskey?
Mm-hmm. You know who told me that story? Honey Boy Edwards. Spent the weekend at our house.
Really?
He had one gig that Wheatland paid for to go talk to the high school kids about the history of the blues. His end of it.
Well, he was there.
So I know. So I went to somebody who worked in the Minority Student Affairs office, and I said, "We got this African-American musician. He's in town, and I bet you we can sell several hundred tickets to see him if we can get him a gig here." He goes, "How much do you think he wants?" I said, "I don't know." So I called his man, Michael Frank, and he says, "Offer him $300.
Whoa.
So we took it, and he stayed at our house, and our guest bedroom is upstairs, and he goes, "I'm not going. I don't do stairs too well. I'll sleep on your sofa." And I go, "Sure, that's fine. I just wanted you to know we've got a room for you upstairs if you want it." He says, "No, I'll just sit." So we got him blankets and all that kind of stuff. I went into my record room, closed the door, and taped an interview with him, and he told me the Robert Johnson story about how he was flirting with the Juke Joint owner's wife or girlfriend. It was a white guy. And he said, "Robert, don't mess with that woman, because he's the one that's paying you to play guitar. So we came over and gave him an open bottle of liquor, and he said, so definitely do not drink that. Oh, you're, blah, blah, blah. He drank it, and he said about 3 days later, he's down on his hands and knees barking like a dog, and then it was all over.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Straight from the horse's mouth, David Honeyboy Edwards.
We ran in, let's see, the first time in Dresden, Germany. We were doing a blues festival there. I brought Cherie Williams. And next time I saw him was at the blues festival in Lansing.
Okay.
And he remembered my name.
Oh, good.
And I thought, that's never happened like that. I mean, blues guy who meets hundreds of people every day.
Yep.
And he remembered my name. And I thought, cool.
Yeah. It's fun when that happens.
But he was there. I mean, he was.
Oh, he was definitely there.
You did an interview with, I think Paul brought a couple to town in Tawas, Robert Jr. Lockwood.
That was really...
And Corey Harris was another one of those shows. He had these limited shows at that little place up there.
I didn't do Corey Harris.
No, but you did. You were at that gig.
At the Robert Lockwood one, and the Canadian guy who played an instrument. It sounds like a sitar.
Yeah.
It's called a Mohan Veena.
Yeah, I missed that one. I wasn't at that show.
That was really good. Taking an interview with him.
The Harry Manx.
Yeah, Harry Manx.
Yeah, I love Harry Manx. I missed that gig.
Yeah, he said he was into Buddhism and all this sort of thing. He went to India and
one of my favorite musicians.
I can't remember. It was kind of like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, kind of like the Beatles, but it was like the guy who had the Mohan Veena. And
wasn't Robert Jr. Lockwood the supposedly son of Robert Johnson? Was that, or am I thinking
Robert
of someone?
Jr., that was, his mother was Robert Johnson's girlfriend.
Okay.
He probably had girlfriends all over the place. But when he came back, well, you know where Lockwood's from.
Right.
Turkey Scratch, Arkansas. That's the name of the town. It's right near Helena. And guess who else is from? Levon Helm from the band.
Really?
Is from Turkey Scratch, Arkansas.
Turkey Scratch.
That's what I know. I want to go there.
Yeah.
We drove down to, when I got that Keeping the Blues Alive award, I said, let's get off the highway and see what's going on. Take the back roads into Memphis. And I went, and I'm looking, and it goes, oh my God. Tina Turner's Nutbush, Tennessee. I said, hey, Nutbush, Tennessee. It's like about 5 miles off the road here. We got to go. So we get off the interstate, and as soon as we got onto the 2-lane northbound road, it said Tina Turner Highway. And I went, oh, got to get a picture. So we did a picture, and then we get there, and it wasn't even a crossroads town. It not only didn't have any kind of a blinker light or nothing, it had just we call them party stores, but it was like, had 3 gas pumps and a sign advertising liquor and cigarettes and all that kind of stuff. And then it says, Nutbush, Tennessee, home of Tina Turner. Just a funky, I'm sure there's places out in the thumb that you can find that are just like it.
Yeah. Jeez.
But it was just amazing. That was a great trip down to Memphis.
Yeah, I've been offered to do a lecture at the Clarksville, where the Blues Museum is.
Delta Blues Museum.
Because they carry my books.
Okay.
And I said, well, I live in Michigan. I can't just come here, So I've been trying to figure out a way to visit my sister in Florida and take a detour. I just haven't done it yet.
I've done stuff like that, yeah.
Well, thank you, Robert, for bringing all these stories.
Sure,
and
thanks for inviting me.
This has been an unbelievable time, man.
I was not being standoffish. I just didn't know what it was.
That's fine. We're thankful you were willing to come once we saw you at that show and you were on board. And we've had Tom Ball and Mike Johnston twice now. Mike's got a second episode's coming out soon with us, and they were both like you gotta get Robert on the show. We're like, we're trying.
Yeah, it was terrific. Really.
Thank you so
Outstanding.
much.
Thanks for inviting me.
On behalf of our hosts, this podcast wouldn't be here without generosity of the Bay City Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame. We'd also like to thank all of our guests, and especially to the listeners. The MMHP is found at 989.network, or where all podcasts can be found. You can find updated information as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Picks of the Week on Facebook. Also on Facebook, check out Mr. Mike's Local Music Live series and Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen Studios, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as Mr. BT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1.
On behalf of us hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, we'd like to thank Mr. Eddie Switek, the voice of the MMHP and the 989. Right.
So anyways, he found out about this concert and he wrote a book about it. He went back and he tracked down some of the students who organized it, some of the brothers, and so there's a book on it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's just a fascinating story. And I don't know, did Steve mention that they had a chance, they were actually offered a recording contract with the Who's label?
I don't remember if he did or not.
I
And I
don't
haven't
think
played
he
back
did.
that show. So.
Well, you know,
remember him
their managers that year, earlier in 1967, started their own label, Track Records. And, Pete Townsend got to be friendly with some of the members, especially Scott Richardson, the lead singer. And he recommended them to Kit Lambert, who was the manager of The Who. He flew to Michigan, and SRC played an audition for him at the Fifth Dimension Teen Club. Wow. Afterward, he offers them a recording contract. If they come to England, he'll have their first single produced by Pete Townsend. So they've got that on the table, and they've got an offer from Capitol Records.
Oh man, he may have talked about this. Now that you're saying that,
Yeah.
it's starting to ring a bell more.
And here's the big decision: they go with Capitol, and they were pretty successful. Those first two albums made the top 200.
Mike?
Um,
Okay.
But it's the big what if thing.
Oh, yeah.
The problem with SRC is they never had the single that broke the band. You still needed, even though albums were kind of
At
king.
that time, yeah.
Yeah, albums were still king, but they still relied on a single to get radio play to generate the interest in the album, and they could never come up with the single that would have been different if Townsend would have produced the
Right. That's
song for it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So
there
you
was
got a
book on
picture
it.
of him without his pipe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy,
I
Gatemouth.
asked him, I said,
You know what
"What
was
are you-
in that
What are you
pipe?"
smoking that thing? And he says, none of your damn business.
That's right.
Did you take this photo?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
I brought
I
these-
went to
yeah,
his
these are my
motel
cover
room.
photos.
Oh man,
'Cause Kenny
that's,
Neal
that's
said-
a great one.
Because Kenny sold me some weed at the time, and I said, well, tell Gate to come down to our room, Lazy Lester and I. And he goes, okay, I'll tell him, but he probably won't. You'll have to go to his room.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, nothing wrong with that. So I end up smoking the rest of the night with Gate. But he always had, when he had that pipe in
I
his,
got pipe. I have a shot.
He always
where
had
it's all-
marijuana.
It's his face and all this smoke coming up
Whoa.
in front of his face. I
one.
didn't bring it with me, but
You took this shot of Mabel John?
no. The cover. These are all the covers.
Just
are
the
my
covers,
photo.
okay.
Well, there are inside photos.
Oh, you took that of Johnny?
Yeah, down at the music menu.
Beautiful.
Set up a photo studio. It was
Yeah,
about 3 in
I've
the
seen that
afternoon.
picture. Well,
Luther, Allison.
I guess
wow.
I've seen all these
That,
pictures.
that was in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
I rented a photo studio for 2 hours, and the lady said, "What kind of pictures you doing?" I said, "I'm going to photograph a blues musician for cover of Living Blues magazine." She said, "Really? Who is it?" And I said, Luther Allison, holy smokes.
He's huge.
He's coming to my studio? And I said, if you let us, I think we paid him $100 for the use of the studio. Mm-hmm. And then she goes, I'll leave you guys alone. And at the very end, I just said, can't remember her name, but I said, just come on here and get a photo with you and Luther. Oh my God.
Well, you probably saw
favorite.
Well, you probably saw him when he was at
Who gets
the
this?
bar that turned into Daisy.
What's on there?
I'm the one who
about
booked him.
107.
Yeah, he came right to
I interviewed him.
I'll take care of that. You want me to get that back too?
One of the first
I would
night,
like to
I
have it back.
went in the back room. I
have a
still
laptop
have
here?
it. I
No,
wrote an
yeah.
article about it.
I'll take
Yeah,
it home
he-
and put it in the system.
He came
and have
out
to
with
mail
his
it or send it,
90-foot
get it
cord, and the last night
Thank you.
I brought 2 guitar friends of mine, Rick Stanky and somebody else, maybe Mike Yankee. And Luther came out right to our table and just did his thing, man. And my 2 guitar playing friends were just, wow.
Yeah, he did the same thing, probably because my wife was with me, but he came right to our table, and it was quite an experience, yeah. And to see him in a club that small, too. I mean, that wasn't a very big place. What was that called before it was Daisy?
Ace of Clubs.
Ace of Clubs, there it is, right.
Well, the night or that evening in Ann Arbor, this is like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, he was playing at the Blind Pig. Charlie Walmsley was with me. And he said, we're going to go get a bite to eat, but I got to take a shower. And he says, we'll see you at the club. So Charlie and I pull up to the club, and there's about 150 people in line. I went, oh, my God, shit, oh, my God. So we said, well, let's go get in line. His cab pulls up. Luther and his girlfriend, her nickname was Rocky, hop out of the car and he said, Robert, Charlie, come on with us. So we went, whoa. I felt like lost a few buttons on my head. Who am I?
I'm with the band.
That's it. Should have said that. Excuse me, I'm with the band.
That's awesome.